sessions, we can continue. And now it's our great pleasure to have Alessio Patino. He is the Knowledge Coordinator in EU SME Center in China. He will give us his perspective on the opportunities and also risks, and of course for the market entry for EU SMEs in China. Thank you so much, Alessio.
Thank you, Kuru. I'm trying to share my, okay. So you can see my screen, I guess. Thank you again, Kuru, once again for organizing this webinar. Good morning, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. As introduced, yeah, maybe just I'm currently working at the USME Center in Beijing. I will provide a very brief introduction in a little bit, but a little bit of background on myself. I've been working for a few years in different capacities under different EU projects in China. I'm based in China, I'm based in Beijing as well. And I'm mostly been involved in policy, market analysis, as well as market access regulations, barriers, especially within the technology, R&D, innovation sector. Now, what my presentation today will be divided into three main parts. The first part will be, of course, to introduce very briefly what the USME Center does, but also what, from our perspective, we see from European SMEs that want to, that are approaching to the Chinese market or that are already here. Second part, which should be the core part, I will outline a few potential strategies, approaches that SMEs can choose when engaging with China. And the last part, there will be some recommendations, some tips based on experience. So briefly, the USME Center in China is a project funded by the EU. We've been since 2010. So 12 years already, and our mission is to help European SMEs to export to China, to do business with China, to get to know China. And we are currently in a third phase, which is run by a consortium of 5 chambers of commerce and business organizations in China. You can find them at the bottom of the slide. We partner up with many organizations, both from government, business, and we have a physical office in Beijing, which is where I am now. We also have a permanent a colleague based in Brussels. So you're also welcome to, if you're interested, you're also welcome to contact me. I will introduce this person if you want to have a chat with her. So very briefly, we offer 4 main types of services, all of them free of charge. I would like to stress this. We are funded by the EU. We don't charge anything. Everything we do is free for SMEs and business organizations, European. So the first one is what we call the Knowledge Center. Basically, we write reports, guidelines, or case studies on different aspects, different sectors of China. And we do have quite a few on green technologies, environment, and you can find them all on our website. We also have an advice center. Basically, is a sort of help desk that the SMEs or embassies or government organizations, business organizations can use to ask us any questions they have. We have a team of experts, both in-house and external, that could answer any questions. Also very technical. For instance, what standards do I need? Do my products need to comply with, I don't know, my product is stuck at customs, or does my product need what are the conformity assessment methods needed for certain products and so on. We also have some FAQs, which you can find on the website. This is a screenshot of the website. We also have something called, very, very useful, something called strategiesthat tool. Is basically a series of quizzes that you can use to basically assess test your knowledge about China. There are some statistics to obtain at the beginning. but you see these quiz, there are different questions, multi-questions, and at the end, based on your the answers you selected, you will get a score and an explanation of the answer, why they're wrong or right, as well as links to existing resources that we have, FAQs, reports, webinar recordings, and so on. So it's very quick, it's very useful. I think I would really invite you to follow it, to try it. Third is a training center. Basically, we also organize trainings in China, offline and online, while in Europe still mostly online. And finally, we also have an advocacy platform. We have a joint working group together with the European Chamber of Commerce in China, through which we try to disseminate some information about new regulations or drafts for comments and so on. So this is it. Now, what I would like to do, I would like to have some kind of engagement with the audience. I designed two very simple polls that we could have to the audience, and to see basically what is the general understanding of the participants about some aspects, which I'm going to elaborate a little bit more. So maybe if we can, Jinan, if we can launch the first of the polls. It's very simple. Basically, it's about what are the drivers of your interest in China? Why are you interested in China? And you know, there are different responses. There could be different reasons. Because it's a big market, there are a lot of people. China is opening up. China is still less expensive compared to others. There are a lot of opportunities also from the digital side, or many other factors. So I would really appreciate if you could just select one of these and provide comments on this. So maybe we wait a few seconds more. Okay, can we see the results maybe?
Polling is still coming. Can we wait for a few more?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I still see.
Sorry, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, right. Okay, size of the market. Okay, so yeah, I think it's very interesting to see that the three, let's say, most common responses are size of the market. Of course, China is objectively very big, and meaning that the pie is very big. But it's very interesting to see that opportunities from internet and digital is the second place. And actually, this is very true. We also see many companies that are doing European companies doing R&D in China and are exporting innovation from China, especially relating to the digital side, integrating some digital innovation into their products, which are then exported worldwide, and so on. Well, I think what we see at the USME Center here is that European SMEs still have, despite all the context, all the narrative that we read, there is a very huge appetite for China. There are, of course, different reasons. Some of them we have seen in the poll, but also growing middle class, of course, and emerging products. There are still innovation here happens with a very rapid pace, meaning that sometimes there are new products, new segments emerging very often. But there are many other reasons. So this is what we see here. Still a lot of interest to access the Chinese market. Now there is a second short poll. If we can launch it, please. Which is related this about the challenges and the barriers, the difficulties that that companies may have. So so what do you think? of course, there is a lot of interest, but it's not, China, of course, is not easy. It's not an easy market. There are many challenges. So what do you think are the most significant ones? Lack of knowledge about China, culture, market, regulations, anything. Also working with the wrong partners or cultural factors, a lot of competition, or any other. Or what do you think? Okay, we see the results. Fierce competition, ranking first, lack of knowledge. I mean, the lack of knowledge, working with wrong partners, cultural factors. Indeed, they are all major challenges existing. I think they're pretty much same proportion. There is one in others which I cannot read from here. I don't know if it's in the chat or if you can read it for me. In others, there was. Yeah, maybe in the meantime I will go ahead. Then maybe you can interrupt me later. So yeah, as I mentioned,
sorry,
there is a lot of interest, but yes.
The others is lack of the legal security.
Legal security. Okay. Well, I think it certainly how the legal system, regulatory system works a bit differently compared to Europe. It doesn't mean that there is no, let's say, more uncertainties that could affect, let's say, the business. Slide later on this. So what we see here is that there is a lot of interest, but still many companies, many European SMEs, they're not that successful or even fail. And we see the most common reasons is lack of knowledge, and not only many people think they can sell anything because they are European. European is associated to high quality. Yes, but at the same time, no. That's not enough alone. Preparation, sometimes people rush to take decisions, or commitment. Sometimes people just for them, coming to China is just a side project or something. They're not fully committing to it, and this is a very wrong approach, because China takes a lot of time and resources. We're working with the wrong partners, and we see this especially joint ventures. Of course, that could be, in the long run, it's very easy that if the two sides, the European side and the Chinese side, are not very aligned, there could be some divergences which could impact, of course, the operation of the company. But also, if you just export to China, if you work with if you have an exclusive agreement with a local distributor that doesn't perform well, then it's very hard sometimes to get out of this agreement, and might impact your business here. China is objectively a hard market. This is a fact. And cultural factors, and with cultural factors, I don't refer only to interpersonal, intercultural communication when you negotiate, when you talk to people, but also corporate culture. European companies might tend to make slower decisions compared to the Chinese ones, or procedures are different, and this, of course, might have an impact on your employees. At some point, it might be difficult to retain some employees. They may leave and may even end up working with your competitors. Different role of government in business. This is, I also mentioned in the previous question. The government here is everywhere in one way or another. It's always much more present in any side, in any aspect of the business, from getting approved, from entering the market, to get a permit, to get a certification, or just to sell something, sell a product, at some point you will need to work with the government. The other thing is that many people, of course, costs here in China is still relatively cheaper, but actually they're increasing a lot. Logistics here, renting land or even moving products from Europe to China, and especially from China to Europe, is increasingly expensive. Operations, salaries of scientists, engineers are very, very high. And there is a lot of competition, again, especially in the in the mid-end market. In the high-end market, of course, maybe European companies, Japanese companies still have competitive advantage, but in the mid-end market, in many sectors, there isn't that much difference. Unwritten barriers. Sometimes what you read on paper is not necessarily like that in practice. Sometimes you encounter some issues which do not exist, let's say, on paper or legally, and so on. So overall here, the USME Center is trying to increase the awareness about these issues, is try to tell you with specific examples what these issues could be in practice, and try to think about ways how to minimize such risks, how to avoid such issues. So you can reach out to us anytime. We will be very happy to have a chat with you. For instance, going back to some of the answers to the drivers of interest in China. Many people sometimes say, I'm interested in China because China is huge, the pie is big, and even if I get the 0.0001%, I still make a lot of money. Yes, China is indeed very, very, very big, but it's not a unified market. Actually, just a few days ago, there was a very big policy document about the establishment of a unified market in China. This means that actually there are still, the market is divided into clusters, it's divided into regions, and there are still a lot of protectionism in many provinces, which make it hard to perform well everywhere. So you need to revise your strategies depending on the region, the specific region you go. Another thing, China has a huge population, yes, but it's culturally very diverse. And there are, and each client, it's very likely that they have their own requirements that need to require you to adjust some specification of your products, or to integrate with some other Chinese, let's say, elements, software or many other elements. There's competition, but China is so big, yes, but in many sectors, actually, many foreign companies have been operating in China for decades already. So if you're new to China, yes, China is big, but you are a latecomer, and many segments, there's already a very big competition, both from foreign companies, but also local companies. So you will need to spend a lot in marketing and branding and things like this. China is relatively cheap. I mentioned before, I personally disagree with this. I think costs here are very, very high. Also taxes actually for companies, and China is opening up. Yes, China is opening up, but at the same time, it is doing so in a very selective way. If you go to see the sectors where there is opening, are either sectors where China needs foreign investment because it needs to catch up with foreign technology, or sectors where China has already caught up, so they're not scared about having local companies competing with foreign companies, and electric vehicles is an example of that. So to conclude this part, I would say that there are a lot of opportunities in China. I'm not saying that there are not, but these are very difficult to grasp. You require a lot of time, and certainly it's not the only place in the world where such opportunities exist. So that's it. Moving into the second part of my presentation here, what I'm going to do is to highlight a few, let's say, common approaches for entering the Chinese market. Of course, what happens in practice is that it's not, you can only have one instead of others. What happens in practice very often is that you have a combination of two or more together at the same time, or maybe one leads to another, and so on. But to make things easier here, I'm going to talk about them one by one. So the first one is the one for which you just export from Europe. You work with Chinese agents, distributors, importers that sell your products in China, but you don't have a physical presence in China. Second one is if you invest in China, if you open a company, it could be just a sales office or a manufacturing plant or even an R&D plant. Third one is actually also a way to enter the Chinese market, basically that you have a Chinese company investing in your company in the EU. Another one is very underestimated, I would say, is to do some kind of innovation, project-based innovation R&D cooperation. Another one is to PPP project, public procurement, public-private project partnerships, but also procurement. And another one is licensing. So what I'm going to do here is just to go through them one by one, highlighting maybe some of the characteristics. I mentioned the first one where you just export to China. This is, of course, let's say the easiest, meaning that you only need to find basically a client, and then maybe you might need to have your product certified, to do some testing in a laboratory. But after you have done this, and by the way, this might take many months. So it's not like something very, very automatic. But once you have done this, you are basically done. You don't have, the costs are pretty low. Risk is also very low, and it's very easy to exit the market just in case. Useful, this is usually this is a good way, let's say, to try to collect some feedback, some response from the Chinese market about your products, and then maybe if you see a lot of success, positive feedback, you might consider other approaches. The negative, of course, among the cons, the negative side is that once your product enters China, you don't necessarily know what will happen to the product. And then unless it's a high-end products, it's very competition is very tough. A second approach would be, of course, to establish a representation in China, and there could be many types of representations. It could just be a representative office where you only have one person here following your business on the ground, or you could have a sales company that just responsible for developing the business. You could have manufacturing plant, you could have an R&D center, you could have many types of representations in China, and these, of course, require more investment and long-term commitment. Risk is also higher, of course, and it's harder to exit the market once you have a set up a plant, a production plant here. Of course, this allows you to be closer to your customers, especially for after-sale services. We have seen in the past that many European companies, even they have great products, they are not that successful because they're not able to respond in a quickly manner to the problems, requests of Chinese clients. And now during the time of COVID, where it's impossible to travel from Europe to China, if you have to send you cannot send anymore a technician to your Chinese client for doing some maintenance or to doing some inspection. So of course, if you have a joint venture, if you do a joint venture, you can leverage on the resources and the network of your client, and then for your business. The cons, of course, are the high cost. The other thing that I always like to stress is that no matter how big your company is, if you are not present in China, if you are new to China, you will always be a sort of startup, even if you are a huge company in Europe, simply because you have to start basically your business from scratch, your networks from scratch, and you need to get known, you need to do branding, you need to establish good relations with authorities and so on. It's difficult to find good partners for joint ventures, and of course joint ventures also may lead to exposure of IP issues. Third approach would be to have a Chinese investor invest in your company in the EU. Of course, this might be a bit, let's say, we generally recommend it only if it's greenfield, or if the Chinese investor actually doesn't just buy your company, but they also bring some know-how, some technologies which you don't have. So that if they enrich, basically, if there is a real value rather than just buying your company. This way, and there are many cases actually of Chinese high-tech companies investing in some European countries and opening R&D centers in that European country, and keeping all the research there. There are many cases actually. Of course, the risk is that at some point, especially if the investment leads to a restructuring of the company governance, it's the risk that the company might just shut down, and then everything is brought back to China, and that basically you don't exist anymore. Another way is, which I mentioned is very underestimated, but in the energy, climate, environment sector, I think project-based cooperation and PPP in general are very useful approaches, and also relatively easier. So in China, there is a high demand for demonstration projects. And in this demonstration project, basically, you don't need to do the Chinese side would be very happy to cover all the expenses, usually all the financial expenses or in-kind contributions. You don't need to worry about this. You only need to worry about proposing a solution, demonstrating that the solution works, and then actually this could, if successful, could lead to many other opportunities in the future, could open up many other doors. And there are cases of this, even of SMEs working with a local authority, a local administration in China, or a state-owned enterprise on a very defined project with very clear terms of reference, and after which the project was very successful, and now the company is working with even the big champions, the state-owned companies in the oil and petrochemical sector. Negative aspects are that, of course, you are dealing with a lot of bureaucracy. There will be some in response to the comment made before, some uncertainties from the legal side. Sometimes there is a you might be subject to politicization of business, even if you're doing nothing. Maybe something happening at the political level between your country and China might impact your business, even if you have done nothing. And then still tangible results will appear only in the long term. There's also public procurement. Actually, public procurement is difficult, but in some sectors, maybe not much, maybe more medical one. But actually, you can also participate in the Chinese public procurement. The challenge is that it takes a lot of resources and knowledge of the system in order to write a bid. Sometimes profits start to appear only in case of big volumes, so not just for a few pieces of machine, but only if the procurement involves many pieces of machine. And then there is an unwritten kind of preference towards domestically made products. So these are some of the unwritten barriers mentioned before that you never know how to, don't have control on this. And last is licensing of technology. This is also very frequent, I would say. Pretty cost effective. It gives you a stable source of income through royalties and this maybe allows you to focus your resources, your activities on your core, let's say, priorities. Negative aspects is that China is establishing a very highly regulated environment for the transfer of data and knowledge from China to abroad, and this does not include data per se, but also things like samples or anything related to knowledge. there could be some restrictions to move them from China to Europe. Of course, sometimes you don't know what will happen. You don't have control on the licensee, which could lead, of course, to infringements of trade secrets or patents and so on. And of course, it's not easy to find a good partner. So these are just, I think, the most common ways. Of course, as I mentioned at the beginning, they are not mutually exclusive, meaning that sometimes you have more than one at the same time, or maybe one lead to another, and so on. And if you have any questions in particular about some of the bullet points in this table, please write to me anytime. I will be happy to go through this in more detail, also through more examples. So my last slide, it's about some tips and recommendations. I mentioned already that I think I don't like to say that you have to go all in China, but China is not something that you just do it as part of your bigger portfolio, especially if you're an SME. If you're an SME, China will cost you a lot of money, a lot of energy, and so you either are very, very committed to it, or my advice is not to do it. Another one is that China, of course, has a mixed system of economy. Of course, there are some market forces, but still the big decisions, a lot of the let's say that the macro directions are dictated by the policies, by the industrial policies. And this means that by reading the policies, you know what's going to happen within the next 5 or 10 or 15 years. We mentioned the carbon neutrality, the carbon peaking, but not only that, there are many 5-year plans, also sectoral 5-year plans specific for sectors, where they say, where they explain what the priorities are and what's going to happen. And these tell you that if your products fall within these priorities, then you will certainly have a lot of opportunities. You will find more openness here. Of course, the other thing is that China is big, and you cannot just aim to the whole China, but you have to start maybe identify 1 or 2 regions where maybe a certain issue is more serious, where the solution that you propose is more urgently needed, and then focus on that 1 or 2 areas. Another thing is that there are a lot of subsidies, incentives, preferential policies that are given to foreign investors in China in those sectors, in those areas which are a priority from the political side. So those priorities that you read in the policies means that will be in practice means that there will be a lot of support to companies operating in these sectors, also foreign companies. And actually the green transition, there are a lot of subsidy schemes from local administrations that if you are already in China, also if you are a local company, by the way, and you replace your equipment with a more energy efficient one, or with one emitting a lower number of emissions, then you will get a subsidy back based on maybe a percentage of the investment value. And this is happening. This has been happening for many years already, but it's also happening in inland provinces like northwestern China. There are a lot of efforts by the local administrations to replace highly polluting equipment with a greener one. And so my suggestion is not just to focus on Shanghai, Shenzhen, those regions, but also other less known inland regions, which actually provide, in my opinion, very attractive opportunities. Be patient, gradual, think long term. I always like to say that basically in China you will need to double or even increase by 3 times the normal amount of time, resources, and money that you would require in other countries. And and actually also the policies, the industrial policies, Chinese administrations, everything it's from the long-term perspective. In the EU, we are used to think more maybe on the short term, but in China you have to think about the big picture and the directions. Don't think you're special. This is something I really like to say. China, we are in 2022, and China is very different from what used to be until 20 years ago or 10 years ago. There are, especially in the mid-end, let's say, markets, many Chinese companies already do products which are not at all inferior to European companies. Even in some high-end, even for some high-end products, but maybe in this case, these products are still very, very expensive, so imported products might still be preferred. But in the mid-end market, for mid-end products, trust me that it's not that because you are imported products, you are automatically you automatically have a market, not at all. And the other thing is that the speed at which things are done in China, the innovations, the speed at which new innovations are introduced in China is much faster than Europe. So maybe now you could be safe, but maybe in 3 years you are out of the market, or if you don't act. And then another thing we see from SMEs, sometimes they're a bit scared about operating here, dealing with the government. They want to avoid dealing with the government at any cost. But in our experience, actually, the Chinese authorities, especially at the local level, are very open to talk to foreign investors, to foreign companies, to foreign actors, and also open to have factual dialogue about problems, opportunities. So even though SMEs usually don't have government affairs department or don't have resources to deal with the public affairs, but there should be always, I think, at least one person trying to follow up relationships and engage with the authorities, because it's really worth it. And finally, of course, due diligence, well, in any country, you need to do due diligence, but here sometimes things might be more opaque, less transparent. So you need maybe to do a bit more in terms of due diligence. So this was, I hope, this was useful. Of course, I will be very happy to discuss in more detail with all of you any of these issues, but also others. Also, if you have specific questions from specific sectors, or if you would like to have some concrete case studies from companies, from European companies, please reach out to us. So that would be it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alessio.